right, hi everybody. I'm back. It looks like mostly the same crowd from last week. Joel's up in town, a few others will be coming in, including my co-presenter husband, who's not here yet. Hi. Just a reintroduction. I'm Carol Smathers. I am, by profession, I'm an associate professor at Ohio State University Extension. I focus on youth wellness and nutrition, improving health and nutrition environments. And personally, I'm a neighbor. I live a few blocks away, and I've been part of the church since, we were just saying, since maybe 1998, 99 when we moved here. Dave and I attended a storefront church, church for all people in the south side of Columbus for about 5 or 6 years, and came back within the last couple of years. So great to be here to talk about food access and food inequality. Did any of you get a chance to take a look at this book or listen to any of the podcasts? All right. Well, I'll give you some, a little brief preview of the book today, some snippets, so hopefully pique your interest, and you can grab the book or listen to some of the podcasts. Are about 30, 40 minutes long, and you can hear the author talking about her research. Very interesting. Let's do a quick review about what you heard last week. Last week, I really gave the introduction, sort of set the stage for reconsidering the costs of healthy food, rethinking the relative costs of healthy versus unhealthy food. Just thinking about that refrain that, of course, people on a very low budget can't eat well. Of course, they eat a lot of fast food. Of course, they have obesity. And then there was the reason that people sum it up with is it's because healthy foods are too expensive. Talked about what my colleagues call my action research, which we changed our household budget in 2018 to $1.50 a meal per person, kept it there until food inflation soared in 2022, couldn't make it work anymore, increased it to $2 per meal per person, and it's been there since 2023. We looked at cost of food reports that really backed up this per meal cost, and that it is possible, buying the right combinations of foods, to stretch that $2, $3 to afford healthy foods. What I tell people what I can't afford is the junk food and the processed food. Doesn't fit after I put the big rocks in the glass. There's not enough room for the little rocks of the junk food. And then we talked about the Thrifty Food Plan as the basis of food stamps, SNAP benefit allotments, and how that was reformulated in 2021, which resulted in a substantial increase, permanent increase to SNAP benefits, which I think is what led to one major political party being very unhappy with the SNAP, with the Thrifty Food revision. I happen to think it was expertly done. It needed to be done. It's right on point, all the percents with my experience of eating on that low budget. So that's what we talked about last week.
Were you happy?
No, I don't know if you remember the quote that I provided last week from this book. But essentially, it says it's one thing to afford cauliflower, but it's another thing to weather the complaints of children.
We've all seen that phrase.
There we go. It's one thing to be able to find and afford cauliflower, but it is another to want to buy the cauliflower. To choose to spend one's money on the cauliflower at the expense of other purchases. To have the time and the know-how how to cook that cauliflower, make it taste good, and to possess the patience to weather on through one's child's complaints and pleas for macaroni and cheese, and to soldier on and to feed the cauliflower to that child only a handful of parents that I met, this is the author of the book, that only a handful of parents I met had these things and the vast majority did not. So that's why I use that photo. So we're talking about, I can briefly, I don't know much about what's going on with the SNAP food assistance program this week. We'll talk about inequalities in the American food system as shared in the book, How the Other Half Eats. And then hopefully we can do some brainstorming. Well, what does that all mean then? What can individuals and organizations like churches do? Food inequality is defined as differences in consistent and fair access to enough food, enough healthy, affordable, and nutritious food between various demographic groups. Dr. Fielding Singh adds a lot of different dimensions to that, what that means, fair and consistent access. We'll talk about that. Food insecurity, we talked about the definitions. We talked about how even though there are a multitude of factors that impact how and why a family accesses certain food and feeds certain foods to their kids, multitude of factors. The food security definition boils down to just one factor. There's one dimension, and it's money. The validated criteria is, did you have enough money? Were you worried your food was going to run out? You wouldn't have enough money to get more. You just gave meals because you didn't have enough money. Well, if money is just one factor among many, but we ask people the questions only about money, then the solution is necessarily about money, and we miss dealing with all those other factors. We talked last week about how the government has stopped collecting that data. That makes some people angry. They say, oh, sure, don't measure the problem goes away. In my mind, it needed to be reworked all along. It's not a good measure. And we'll talk about all those other factors today. What's happening with SNAP, just real briefly, 42 million Americans get that food assistance. The S in SNAP is what? Supplemental. It's never, ever, ever meant to provide the entire, right? All the food a family needs. It's supplemental, and it's based on how much additional help they need beyond what their resources already provide. It's right now paid by the federal government, and states manage and administer benefits. What changed with that big bill that was passed in July is that the share that's being covered by the federal government is shrinking from 50 to 25%. So states will have to pick up a much larger chunk of what it costs to administer that. And the monthly maximum benefit increases changed from $5 to $6 per person. Then the main changes come down to the rules around able-bodied adults without dependents. The exemption was raised from exemption was raised to age 65 from 59. So now people have to work from age 59 through 64. And then the exemption for caring for dependent child applies to parents with children under 14. It used to be any children, dependent children under 18. So those are the big changes. They're not, and again, people are getting real upset about, oh, people are losing their SNAP benefits. These are the changes. And I know that our Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services is working very diligent right now, cleaning up their data and making sure that they get the most support possible from the federal government. All right. As you think about our community, as you think about Central Ohio, right? Church has food pantries. Our church does a lot of outreach around providing food to families who really need it. What are the biggest challenges that people face related to food security or nutrition security here?
I think availability, location of a place that has good food, healthy food.
Yeah.
I mean, if you drive in some of the areas where we obviously deliver
Yeah.
our food pantry, you see a lot of convenience stores, but you don't see like that many full-fledged grocery stores.
A big part of that is what are they seeing all the time, right? What's essentially being marketed to families, to kids, right? To young people, what do they think it should be?
I would think transportation.
Transportation. Yeah.
The location.
Right, and that's what we don't ask in the food security question. We don't ask, you know, did you have enough money, but could you just not get there? We just only ask about money. But that's a big one.
I would say time and knowledge.
Time and knowledge. Absolutely.
And I think the knowledge around nutrition, where are people getting that?
Yeah.
I mean, even as children, because what they're seeing is processed foods, what they're eating is processed foods. How are they to understand nutrition?
Yes, exactly. What else? Any other thoughts on that?
Well, it's generational too.
It's generational.
Kids eat what their parents ate, it's what their grandparents ate. And if you grew up on a certain kind of food, then that's what you know to feed your children. And many of these homes that we serve, it's a grandparent with maybe 5 or 6 grandchildren with their family.
Yeah, think about our childhood experiences, right? We learn the importance of food. We were taught what's good, what's bad, what you eat when you're celebrating, what you eat when you're happy, what you eat when you're tired. Yep.
Yeah, if people are working 2 jobs, parents are working 2 jobs and the food preparation falls to the grandparents or falls to other people who don't have that knowledge, haven't had access to the same information.
So true.
And not everybody has pots and pans. Or even on stuff, it might be.
Right, right, the equipment. Yeah.
I would think combating the promotion of unhealthy foods.
That is huge, right? The promotion, the marketing. From media all the way down to where foods are in the grocery store. That is a big one. We will talk about that. Very good, you're on it. Last week I shared this slide from the USDA. At the time when they reevaluated the Thrifty Food Plan, they did a widespread survey of people already receiving SNAP benefits. And as we talked about last week, 88% said, yeah, we experience significant barriers to getting a healthy diet. 6 out of 10 said it's because of money, because of cost. 4 out of 10 gave one or more of these other reasons like you talked about, right? The equipment, storage, transportation, time, knowledge. Priya Fielding adds numerous layers to that. She, this book came out, I believe, in 2020, 21, 22. She interviewed face-to-face 160 parents across economic levels, and she, I use the word embedded, she uses the word embedded. She embedded herself with 4 racially and economically diverse families over numerous months. She spent hours and hours, days of their lives with them, in their homes, or going to events with them, shopping with them, going to restaurants, just being a part of their families and experiencing what they're eating, where they're getting it, why they're eating what they eat. And explains in detail the challenges and the dynamics involved. And these are some of the main points that she brings out in the book. So the food desert argument that had become pervasive and became thought of as the driving force of nutrition inequality, she says doesn't pan up, doesn't hold up. Families didn't see it as geographic access as an issue. When you go to the data, about 10% are significantly impacted by geographic access. I mentioned the study that I was part of on the south side of Columbus years ago, personally interviewed 300 parents of preschool children. Well, fewer than 10% said they couldn't get to a grocery store. They're all saying, oh yeah, we can get there. That's not the issue. They got Ubers now, right? They got friends with cars, they got buses. They just didn't talk it up in terms of, no, I live in fact, some of them like, why are you talking about my neighborhood as a desert? There's nothing wrong with my neighborhood. They're like, stop, stop bad talking where I live. But they said, no. We can get to the grocery store, it's these other reasons. This next one is, I just can't emphasize it enough. She talks about these parents who are living so close to the edge, right? They got the two jobs, right? They're trying to afford rent, they're trying to afford food, medicine, all the basics. And day after day, after day after day, they have to say no to their kids about just about everything. There's almost nothing they can say yes to their kids about because they just can't afford it. Saying yes to their kids would mean that they can't meet their basic needs. So here they are with this one child, or two, or three, or four, and they're trying to show them that they love them. But all they want is say, no, you can't have it. No, I can't get that for you. No, you can't do that. We can't do that. And junk food, unhealthy food, provides that thing for like $1 or $2 every day that they can say yes to, that they can look their child in the eye and say, hey, I get it. I understand you like that. That means a lot to you. I'll get that for you. I'll feed you that. And it is a way that they love their children, convey to them that they want what their kids want. Now, interesting, the author says, she talked to all these parents, she surveyed, 160 parents. She's like, no, they want their kids to eat healthy food. You ask them what healthy food is, and she goes, in general, they name it, right? They name whole grains and good protein and lots of fruits and vegetables, and they want that for their kids. They've got the basics down. And there's this, right, this push and pull of, and I want to be able to say yes to my kids. I want to spend special time with my kids. And I want, all those, then all the parents that she interviewed that are much more well off financially, they also can tell you the same thing about healthy food. They want what's best for their kids, and they spend so much time, right? So much of their income saying yes to their kids. Sure, yeah, you can get that. You can join that team. Yeah, I'll get you that outfit. Yeah, you can go to that concert with your friends. Yes. So when it comes to junk food, they use no to teach them self-control. They use no to teach them that, food is about fuel. Food is to make us healthy. I'm saying no to you for your own good. I'm saying no to you to what? To tell you how much I love you. And she said that basic concept right there is the divide between why families are choosing foods that are premier, not a great diet over one second. And then also that time issue. She said that when push comes to shove, more affluent parents can make up for not having time, not having fill in the blank by just ordering food, better food, right? Getting food delivered, getting more convenience food. So beyond that, she talks about, and I think some of you touched on it, just all the messaging, right? She said, we've got it. Increasing kids' access to healthy meals has to be coupled with minimizing their exposure to junk food. Yes, during the pandemic, we increased We increased SNAP benefits, permanent increase. We had SNAP emergency allotments. Schools had universal meals. We indeed saw our food security numbers, percentage drop significantly. And the food insecurity world saw that as a win. They said, see, people weren't short on money anymore. Food insecurity dropped. You know what skyrocketed? And I mean skyrocketed. Kids' weight. Because we gave them more healthy meals, but we also gave them a lot more junk food at the same time. Let's see if I can pull this up. This is from, there we go. Why am I not? I'm looking on my PowerPoint and it's not showing me that. Let's try this. Any ideas?
Do you want me to get Ryan?
Sure. That's weird. There we go. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a quick slide.
Wow.
Got it.
It's
Got it.
all right.
I got it.
She got it.
Let's not say a word.
No, no, no.
Brian.
All you have to do is
Someone
look
has
at.
tried to switch between PowerPoints. It completely. Yeah,
Actually,
but
walk-
anyway, you can see there the jump in this is a slide from Nationwide Children's. What I'm trying to do is go back to my other slide. And then when I do that, and you're in the room, it works perfectly. Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I'm not gonna mess with it anymore.
It might just be Windows or your computer
Yeah.
thinking.
Anyway, you saw the graph, right? We have to couple giving kids healthy food with, right, lowering the amount of unhealthy foods. And that goes for adults as well, but those data were about kids. So, and Dr. Fielding Singh talks about how when it comes to marketing, you know, kids don't have the intellectual ability before age 6 or 8 to even read through the lines and hear that we're deceiving them. Right? The ads are essentially out there to trick them, and they don't know that. So that's her argument for decreasing, you know, changing the rules on what we can advertise to kids. It's fraught with challenges in that advertising is free speech.
I'm wondering with that real spike in
Yes.
children's weight, was another factor less activity?
It was a small one.
Because-
It was a small one. You can't exercise your way out of a really bad diet.
Right.
And kids weren't, yeah. I mean, it was a factor, but to see an increase that spike. And that's a huge data set from Nationwide Children's and all their clinics across central Ohio. So it's only recently in the last year, 18 months, started to inch down. But yeah, sharp increases in child obesity. So what did she say are the drivers of food insecurity? Okay, it is access to nutritious food. We'll talk about the many dynamics of that. Check the time. We're about 20 minutes left. Numerous social and cultural influences. And that's what didn't get asked in that data where I took the survey of SNAP recipients, right? If you're only asking certain questions, you're only gonna get certain answers. We didn't ask them, is it really hard for you to say no to your kid? Is that why you're feeding them not food? And if we'd asked that, we would have seen, you know, a huge percent saying, yeah, I have, you know, I take them out to eat, I take them to Starbucks, so they know how much I love them. Even though my electric bill just got cut off, or my electricity just cut off, I'm gonna go spend $12. She gives an example. This family, their electricity was cut off, and she was with them on the way to Starbucks, and the mom spent $12 on drinks for that reason. Boy, that's something that many of us would judge. Like, how can you be spending that money? Because for that hour, it felt normal. Food deserts, again, the book challenges that narrative. Cost and affordability, families with limited resources have fewer choices, yes. However, many recognize that healthy foods are affordable. There are quotes in the book from families that she spent time with where, you know, these really, really low income moms are saying, oh no, referring to the healthy food, oh no, that stuff's cheap. No, I can afford that, but here's why I don't. Here's why I don't buy that. And that they talk about it, that it is within their reach. Time and convenience, so again, limited time and demands of modern life often impact food choices with convenience outweighing nutritional value. All been there. And then food assistance programs like SNAP may not always provide the sufficient funds for a healthy diet, depending on where the family is and what their circumstances are. This is next couple slides. It's vegetable consumption by income and fruit consumption by income. And the different types of vegetables, so any vegetable, dark green vegetables, red and orange vegetables, starchy vegetables, and other vegetables. So what does that say? What it says to me is, you know, okay, there are slight differences. In, you know, that the darker is, right? These are, the lighter and darker are differences in income level, but pretty much it says that people don't like dark green vegetables as much. It doesn't matter how much they make. You're not gonna eat them, right? They don't like them. They don't like that spinach. They're not gonna eat that. There was an interesting study by a researcher at OSU that looked at, you know, how much fast food people ate before and after they lost their jobs. And it hardly changed. Or before and after they got a better job. It hardly changed. You know why? Because if you like fast food, you're gonna buy it, and if you don't, you're not. That was the overall factor, and that's what we're seeing here too, right? Everybody has that same sort of dislike for dark green and that like, they like their carrots, they with their carrots. You see the same thing with fruit consumption. All right, those social and cultural influences. Food as a status symbol, we talked about how that came out a lot. That, you know, people use food to show what kind of person they are. She talked about these racialized discourses and how some of the Black families that she talked to, excuse me, or spent time with, they would say, you know, I want my child to be considered mainstream. I want my child to be eating what, you know, what other people would consider white food. I want to teach them that. She talked a lot about families that, or individuals who grew up eating certain foods and actively worked to not eat the food that they ate when they grew up. You know, when we grew up, the example she gave, Wonder Bread and, you know, Oscar Mayer, this or that, and she said, families were saying, I'm determined my kids won't be like that. I'm determined. She talked about a parent who grew up looking in the windows of restaurants but was never allowed to eat there. Never. And she would take her boys to a restaurant, even though she couldn't afford it. So my kids are gonna experience that. So parent expectations and pressure, she talks a lot about what it is like for mothers in the US, that they can't win. There are so many expectations on them that their kids' diets, their kids' weight is a reflection of their ability as parents. And so they are constantly stressed, they're constantly being told by others around them that they're not doing it right. And that she brings out the nuances about how that's different for low-income moms and high-income moms, but they're all stressed, they're all overwhelmed, and they all think they're not getting it right. And they're trying so hard to get it right. Privileged parents face pressure to constantly improve their children's diets, while families with fewer resources may struggle to meet even the basic nutrition needs. And the moms who have really had trouble providing for their families, they're single moms. For them, many of them said, if my kid is full, that I did something right that day. It doesn't matter what they're full with, but they're not saying they're hungry. Systemic factors, so of course poverty, the lack of access to healthy food options contribute to food insecurity, again, because that's a measure that we use. The role of the food industry, and you've talked about that. And the book criticizes the food industry's marketing practices, particularly targeting children, calls for policies that promote healthier food environments, and then the need for systemic change. So if we can make huge changes in the big systems to living wages, affordable housing, incentive programs, she said then that takes the power away from the junk food. Parents are in a place more and more often where they can provide things their kids want, and they don't use the unhealthy food to meet that need. That's not their only option for meeting that desire. All right, so thoughts on that? Just open it up for discussion. How do these, has this kind of changed your thinking about food insecurity?
I definitely learned some new facts, and I just would comment on the bullet point on the previous slide, more nutritious choices in schools. As a 37-year public school employee, what I heard from my cafeteria supervisors was, we are very limited about what we can choose. Our supervisor at the district level has a little more choice, but there's a finite list from which food can be chosen and ordered. And so I always came away with the feeling like those choices were made at a different level from the individual school districts.
So yes and no. I happen to know a lot about that.
Please, teach me.
Because I'm the director of the Farm to School program.
Great.
In Ohio, and that's our goal, is to help institutions, to help school districts, early care centers, to do three things, right? To better purchase, to better serve, and to better teach kids about local foods, about where their food comes from, who grows it, how does it grow, how does it get to them, what does it take to grow food, and why should they care? So that how to buy it and how to serve it. They're in a really, right, that's one of the toughest jobs in the world, is being a food service director. You're at a really tight margin, you are restricted. I heard that the food service director from Cincinnati Public Schools said NASA has the most guidelines and policies and restrictions, and school food service is second to that in the number.
Wow.
Yeah.
Almost like rocket science.
Yeah, she said it's, yeah. That said, Cincinnati Public Schools in 2000, if it's right, 17, 19, adopted, their school board unanimously said, we are becoming part of the Good Food Purchasing Program. The Good Food Purchasing Program is a national organization that audits how schools, how they buy the food, how they serve it. And they have criteria on everything from, how much of it is local within a certain mile radius to, are these women and minority-owned businesses? How do they treat their animals? Do they use sustainable practices? How much of it's organic? oh, I wish I had the percents off the top of my head, but they're now spending millions on local food. They're now offering a vegan and vegetarian option at every school food service line.
Wow.
In Cincinnati. Right? If you could see the fresh foods on those kids' trays, you'd be amazed. But it's because they created the political will. And they put that rule in, like, I think when that food service director was told, this is what you're gonna do, I think, you know, she just,
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. But they're doing it. They're working with local food hubs. They're getting their, you know, Klosterman Bakery is 4 miles away. They're getting bread that was baked 4 miles down the road now because they're thinking about it. They're getting dairy that's sourced from farms within 150 miles. They're, you know, and they're talking to the kids about the food. They don't just have school gardens, they have school farms. And they're getting them GAP certified. They're getting them certified in generally good agricultural practices so that food can be sold and that food can be used on the food line. It's amazing the kinds of changes that are happening. But they all started from, they had this really thin margin, they had this list of USDA guidelines a mile long, they could only choose from, the name of it, but yes, there was an inventory sheet, but that's where they thought that was the only foods they were allowed to get. So we're working on how do they change their procurement practices. It's actually not more expensive, it's more time up front to figure that out. But hang in there, improvements are to many districts, not to all. I go in, we've talked about this, you go into somebody's school lunch lines and it's, you know, food, it's wrapped in, it's all wrapped individually in cellophane, it was microwaved, they don't have a kitchen on site. They're given, you know, 10 minutes to eat, they're yelled at while they eat, they're told they can't talk to their friends while they eat. Some of them are horrible. We have more and more and more success stories about how that's turned out. Excellent point. The other thing is I see, and this is largely with the schools that have gardens, we hear across the board, kids are going home and asking their parents to buy the foods that they grew. My kid wants me to buy basil now. My kid wants me to buy pea pods now, because you're growing that. My kid wants me to buy bok choy. I don't even know what that is. But we're, okay? And so if kids can go home because of those experiences in school and ask their parents for that instead of asking for the Cheetos and Doritos that day, woo! Those are the kinds of, like, it's a big ship we're trying to steer. It's a very slow turn, but we're working on it. You got a question in the back?
I was just gonna say, in the book, you talked about, on the food desert issue, you went into an area that had no grocery store.
Yes.
You took our giant eagle and plopped it down there. The marketing and the ultra-processed foods that people are, you know, when you walk in the door, you're just overwhelmed with this. And the marketing to kids is that people, if they suddenly had a grocery store, they're not gonna buy the healthy foods, they're gonna buy what everybody else buys when they go in the giant eagle.
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear what he said, but in terms of the food desert argument, right, what he was saying is if you plop down a full-service grocery store in every neighborhood and made it so everyone was in walking distance, it would not change the balance of food inequality. Because of all the, back to, because all those unhealthy foods are there, and the marketing of those foods are there. They're, you know, grocery stores are not our friends by and large, right, when it comes to healthy eating. They're not set up to help us eat well, they're set up to make a profit. She makes the point, you know, we don't plop down fruit and vegetable markets, you know, when we put in a store. We put in a full service grocery store, we put in aisles and aisles of high processed food. So how do we change all the factors that make it so that, you know, like I had to rework my shopping when I reduced my budget to $1.50 to $2 a meal. Okay, I can buy all those healthy foods, I can figure out the healthy foods that stretch, but I gotta walk past all that processed food because I can't buy local foods. money's too tight. Other thoughts on how these factors play out?
Well, last week when you talked, the most surprising fact that I learned was what was the most important factor in terms of staying within your budget. You had 4 choices up there,
Yeah,
and I would not have picked portion size.
portion size,
That's the most important.
by far,
So, and that's pretty interesting.
yeah.
But, you know, the whole thing about food inequality and nutrition,
Yeah.
I mean, the selling point that it's healthier, that it's cheaper, it's certainly better for your carbon footprint.
All of that,
And
right?
those are strong positives that can help turn the
Yeah.
market slowly
And that's
in the right direction.
why I do these talks. I got the opportunity this past week of it, spoke to a group of 100 family consumer sciences professionals from across the country at a conference, as their nutrition educators, and right, for that reason. And I stopped telling them they can't afford it. Tell them all the good things about spending less. There are benefits to spending less money. And it's not, I tell people, like, this isn't a death sentence to really reduce it's not a prison sentence to really reduce how much you spend on food. It makes things easier. It makes things quicker for me, and it really improves my health. So, I eat better, I taste the food more, I'm eating whole foods.
Pamela has been serving lunch to Catch Board for
Ah,
a number of years.
Mhm.
The first time we ever served, we took hummus,
oh yeah,
which was totally untouched.
Right, yep.
What it was.
yeah,
And now, well, since then, the vegetables that we take, usually selected personally by Louise Davidson, it's cauliflower, it's broccoli, it's
That's
cherry
okay.
tomatoes, it's colorful peppers, and the fruits are strawberries and grapes and
isn't that great?
bananas.
Yeah,
And more people are, selecting those. And what they don't eat, they can take.
oh, wonderful, yeah, like just introducing them to those flavors, and like with the school gardens, we say if kids grow it, they'll eat it, they really will.
But they do like a lot of ranch dressing and dipping.
Oh, you know,
It's a compromise, right?
Right?
You're not into the hummus, but you will eat the vegetables.
it's a vehicle for getting that vegetable down into their tummies. It's not nutrition if they don't eat it. School food service directors say that all the time. We can put it on the tray, but it's not nutrition, it's not rebellious.
You know,
Not
that's,
nutrition on the tray.
having spent some time in schools myself, as, not as a student, but, well, in addition to being a student, as a teacher. There's a lot of training of those apples that they get for the potato chips, that's their last mainstream.
Yep.
There's a lot of training.
It's a very difficult issue. What?
I did a food pantry delivery yesterday, and there are a nice selection of foods that we have in the pantry. I suppose mac and cheese is probably the least healthy thing, but there are healthy things there. And you know, when I was listening to you here, I thought that perhaps we can influence people's food choices by our deliveries and say, this is what it's like to taste this particular food. And people, if they're hungry, presumably they eat the foods we give to them. So there can be a positive factor beyond just supplying food to people.
That's huge.
But the choices of the food that we actually deliver to the people may be addressing this problem in another way.
Right. Here's how I love to eat this food, right? And telling them.
And maybe even a little bonus, maybe you haven't tried cauliflower, but here's a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's got such and such sprinkled on it, yeah.
The other surprising thing you said last week was you don't use recipes, which I figured would be key to teaching people how to eat new foods. So how do you teach people how to
How to not use
these
it.
foods and not use recipes?
Yeah. Sometimes I use the Chipotle example. I said, yeah, some of their food's seasoned, but you pointed. You told them what you wanted and they threw it in a bowl and then they put sauce over it and you loved it. I said, when I shop at, my mid-sized discount grocery store, I buy sauces. They've done the cooking for me, that's super flavorful. I stir up, remember I said that you need a few skills. If you don't have the skills that you can cut fruits and vegetables, you can saute, stir fry, somehow heat up those fruits and vegetables, cook chicken from scratch, cook rice from scratch. Then I pour the sauce on, delicious. I say, think Chipotle, think bowl. Think flavor, think, you go to a Mexican restaurant, think making food like what you're served at your Mexican restaurant. I asked, who needs a recipe to make a spaghetti dinner? Anybody? No, they laugh at me, right? No, you can throw a salad together, you can cook pasta and pour the sauce over it. So that's where I start with them. Those meals go a long way.
I was just gonna say, I have a friend that volunteers at the Hilliard Food Pantry, and she does twice a week a cooking demonstration, and she makes something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with from that food pantry. Has little samples and then gives out, now she does use a recipe, so she gives out the recipe for that. And I thought that was a really smart idea, because I look at some of the stuff that we have, especially on the extra take extra stuff, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I could throw that in, but nobody would know what the heck to do with it,
I've been invited to be a judge at an Iron Chef contest where these are kids, these are middle schoolers, high schoolers. They're just given tables of ingredients, and one time it was like at a school, at a youth garden. So they had a few spices and oils out on the table, but it's basically go pick foods from the garden and make something amazing. No recipes. They just have to be adventurous. Yeah.
It's kind of like the books where you could have there's like 3 different things, you could put them down, make an apple with a zebra head and a crab tail or something. It's like if you stir fry a bunch of vegetables and you cook some rice or quinoa, then you can either put like a Chinese sauce, an Indian sauce, or sprinkle it with Italian seasoning, and it's an Italian dinner with spaghetti, or it's a Chinese meal or it's an Indian meal. And you did exactly the same thing.
And, statistics show Americans don't have very broad habits. They have like 12 meals that they enjoy at home, and that's, they like eating the same thing over and over. So, I think, get sauces and seasonings that you like and put them on the food and they're happy. It's better than, chips and whatever for a meal. Sorry about that.
Well, and delivery too.
Oh, delivery.
You don't want vegetables on your plate, but how about you put it on a taco?
Yeah.
Put those peppers and freshy things on top of it.
Yeah, we hear a lot from people, oh, my kitchen was full, but I was so overwhelmed, I just got Uber Eats. Because it's so easy. But then, we take that delivery and we try to make it a plus. Okay, if you're getting Chinese food delivered, if you're getting, let's take that for an example, stretch it. All right, when you get it home, put a lot more vegetables in it. Make it stretch a few meals. That's really good flavor. That's not one night, that's 3 or 4. Keep it going. So, how can we help address these things as individuals, as organizations? Okay.
We could use our political power, of which we have little right now.
Well, I think one thing is just to set a good example. I mean, if more people follow the basic healthy eating rules, eventually the food industry would have to adjust because they'd say, whoa, nobody's buying this stuff anymore, so.
And I like to say, go forth and spread the word that healthy food is not more expensive. Right? We have 20 people here. You can be sending that message to your families, to the organizations that you work within, right? No. You tell people, oh, you have that much to spend, you understand benefits? What if you bought more of this? And, fruits and vegetables, that's what's really what really stretches, you know, and people are doing it. They're eating on $2-3 a meal. Your family can do it. Like, try to get closer to that, as opposed to, you know, so many professionals, as I said, so many professionals I know just start their guidance with, well, of course you can't. That doctor that asked me what they're, I was doing a presentation and he said, what is Aldi? A doctor at Nationwide Children's Hospital, never heard, didn't know what that was. Never was in his, right?
I was at a baseball game with a company group and people were talking and I heard someone behind me say out loud, he says, if you can't get it at Aldi, you don't need it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I heard some construction workers talking one day and basically said the same thing to each other. But yeah, anything you need, exactly. So yes, fewer choices, not more. Fewer choices and not more can significantly improve our budgets and our intake and our placements. So it's a tough concept for Americans to limit choices and not give more. That's a really, really tough one. So here's some reflections. Unsurprisingly, one solution lies in addressing poverty itself. That's brought out. Elevating families out of poverty can help reduce symbolic weight of kids' junk food requests. And here, I'll end with that cauliflower quote. Right? It's not just about the cost of cauliflower. It's all of these other issues. So let's keep that in mind when we're thinking of how do we help families to use their limited resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.